coming to the sulci and gyri on the superolateral surface. So firstly we will be talking about the frontal lobe. So the frontal lobe, it has prefrontal sulcus, it has superior frontal sulcus, inferior frontal sulcus. Then it also has the anterior and ascending rami of the lateral sulcus. So now we will be seeing it. So this is the central sulcus. Let's follow. This is the central sulcus. Okay. This is the precentral sulcus. Okay. So we know that this is the lateral sulcus, but in the frontal lobe we are only interested in its anterior rami and its ascending rami. Okay. This lies our superior frontal sulcus and this lies our inferior frontal sulcus. Am I clear? So we discussed about the sulcuses. Now coming to gyri. So what were gyri? Gyri were the areas that were between the sulcuses. So this one, this that lies between the central sulcus and the precentral sulcus is the precentral gyrus. Now coming to the superior and inferior frontal sulcus, the part that lies above the superior frontal sulcus is the superior frontal gyrus. Part between the superior and inferior frontal gyri is the middle frontal gyrus, and the part that lies beneath the inferior frontal sulci, is the inferior frontal gyrus. Now we see that this inferior frontal gyrus is divided into three parts by the anterior rami and the ascending rami. So this part is known as pars orbitalis because it lies in the orbital surface. This is known as pars triangularis and this is known as pars opercularis. Am I clear? The prefrontal sulcus, it is the area that lies. This is the prefrontal sulcus. It lies anterior to the central sulcus, and the area between the central and the precentral sulci is the precentral gyrus. We have the superior, middle, and inferior frontal gyri, which is formed due to the superior and inferior frontal sulci. And then we have the anterior and ascending rami of lateral sulcus, which divides the inferior frontal gyrus into pars orbitalis, pars triangularis, and pars opercularis. Now coming to the parietal lobe, we have the postcentral sulcus, and we have the superior and inferior frontal lobules, which are formed by the intraparietal sulcus. Okay. So we again draw. This is the central sulcus. This is the post-central sulcus. Okay. This is the parieto-occipital sulcus, and this is the lateral sulcus. Okay. This is the intraparietal sulcus. So now you tell me what lies between the central sulcus and the post-central sulcus. This is the post-central gyrus. So this is the intraparietal sulcus. It divides the parietal lobe into superior parietal lobule or the superior parietal gyrus and the inferior parietal lobule or the inferior parietal gyrus. This is the parieto-occipital sulcus. Okay. So the post-central sulcus we have, and the central sulcus we have the post-central gyrus, and the intraparietal sulcus it divides into superior and inferior parietal lobules. So now we come to the temporal lobe. So in the temporal lobe we see that we have the superior and inferior temporal sulci, which divides the temporal lobe into superior, middle, and inferior temporal gyri. So now coming to temporal lobe, let's follow again. This is our lateral sulcus. Okay. This is the superior temporal sulcus. This is the inferior temporal sulcus. Okay. This area is the superior temporal gyrus. This is the middle temporal gyrus, and this is the inferior temporal gyrus. Now you can see that this is the posterior rami of the lateral sulcus. So over here, this part, it is known as supramarginal gyrus, which arches above the posterior rami of the lateral sulcus. And similarly, this is the superior temporal sulcus. So this part, which arches above the superior temporal sulcus, is known as angular gyrus. Okay, so what did we see in the temporal lobe? We saw there are two sulci. This is the superior temporal sulci and this is the inferior temporal sulci. So we have the three gyri as well: superior temporal gyri, middle temporal gyri, and inferior temporal gyri. So the gyrus that arches above the posterior ramus of the lateral sulcus is the supramarginal gyrus, and the one which arches above the superior temporal gyrus is the angular gyrus. Now coming to the occipital lobe. So in the occipital lobe we have three sulci: lateral, transverse, and lunate sulci. So you can see that this is the occipital pole. This is the lunate means moon, right? So this is the moon-shaped sulcus. 1 minute. So yeah, the sulcus which lies just near to the occipital pole, this is the lunate sulcus. Okay. Then we have the transverse occipital sulcus, and we also have one lateral occipital sulcus. It is not shown in this diagram. So we will have a lateral occipital sulcus somewhat over here. Okay, and this will divide the occipital lobe into superior and inferior parts. So this will give the superior occipital lobule and the inferior occipital lobule. Okay.